Militarily Speaking, episode 73, Steve Lepper.
This episode, we talk with retired Major General Steve Lepper.
Welcome to Militarily Speaking, brought to you by Armed Forces Bank. This is Tom McLean, who's fortunate to be here today, celebrating with you, Jodi, post-Veterans Day, and Steve Lepper. And Jodi Vickery, I'm the military retail exec for Armed Forces Bank, and Jodi has the illustrious title of Executive Vice President, Director of Consumer Banking. That's almost as long of a title as Steve Lepper in his military career.
I don't know. I think he's done more than I have.
He wins.
Earned his title.
He wins by that much.
Yes, he wins by a lot.
Hashtag.
Yes. Again, welcome to our show. We're excited to have you listening and learning about our guest, Steve Lepper. I do want to take a minute here. I almost said a few minutes. It might take a few minutes because he's very accomplished.
He might even add some more to it.
I would. We want to tell our audience a little bit about you, Steve. So all not new information to you, but it might be to our audience today. Steve Lepper became the Association of Military Banks of America, or AMBA, which we'll refer to it as throughout the podcast, President and Chief Executive Officer in 2015 after serving for 1 year as the Acting Director and Deputy Director of the American Bar Association's Rule of Law Initiative, and for 35 years as an Air Force Judge Advocate, culminating in his service as Deputy Judge Advocate General of the Air Force. Already in the first sentence, he's done more than you and I combined professionally. A retired Air Force Major General, Steve spent most of his career as a legal advisor and counselor to senior U.S. government and military leaders and serving in leadership roles himself. As AMBA CEO, Steve was responsible for the day-to-day management of AMBA, an organization founded in 1959 to partner with the Department of Defense for the benefit of military members and their dependents. AMBA's membership includes large and small national and state chartered banks, most operating on military installations, and all insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or the FDIC. Steve retired from AMBA at the end of August. Happy retirement. Although I bet you're pretty busy in retirement.
We're going to find out retirement is just a word.
It's just a facade. He's still working hard. Steve is a distinguished graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, where he earned a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics and operations research. He also holds a Master of Public Administration degree from Golden Gate University, a Juris Doctor degree from Duke University, and a Master of Laws, International and Comparative Law degree from Georgetown University. He's a distinguished graduate of the National War College, National Defense University, where he earned a Master of National Security Strategy degree.
Can we pause for a second? Because
now I know what's hanging on his wall behind him.
I know, but when I have,
he's going to need a bigger wall.
My resume, my bio says like Denison University.
Accomplished. I finished the college march.
And I always told Steve he has more degrees than a thermometer, but he really does.
Yes, and it's a big thermometer.
That's like 19 universities and schools that he's attended.
I know, very impressive. I think I might need you to tutor my kids in math. In physics, if you know
both
physics.
of them?
Well, actually, just one who shall remain nameless. They shall remain nameless. Steve is an active member of the North Carolina Bar and is admitted to practice before the United States Supreme Court, the North Carolina Supreme Court, and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. His military awards and decorations include 2 Air Force Distinguished Service Medals, the Defense Superior Service Medal, and 3 Legions of Merit. Steve also served as a director or trustee of the Armed Forces Financial Network, or AFN, Arnold Air Society Silver Wings, American College of National Security Leaders, U.S. Space Force Historical Foundation, Airlift Tanker Association, and the Air Force Judge Advocate General's Schools Foundation. Here's the part that you probably would say is super important and maybe the most important. He and his wife, Kathy, have 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren, and they live now in his, we'll say, quote unquote, retired mode. I'm anxious to hear what retired mode is like in Merritt Island, Florida.
Do you know what Steve does every morning? Not every morning.
Probably a lot more than we do all day.
He hangs out and watches the rocket launches.
Really? Are you close enough to see that?
Kennedy Space Center is literally...
I know, he's like pointing. You can't
right
see him, audience, but he's literally pointing out his window.
He has to vacate his residence when the launches occur.
We had 2 launches yesterday.
Wow.
2 SpaceX Falcon 9 launches yesterday.
Do you have footage?
I do not. I see them on average at least once a week.
I didn't realize they launched that many that frequently.
No.
I'd be totally distracted.
We only know what we know when they show them on TV, and it's so infrequent that it's like a daily occurrence down there. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Or at least weekly.
I wouldn't get much done. I'd be looking out my window all day. But welcome, Steve. It is an honor to have you on our show. Thank you for being here with us. I'd love to give you a chance to start to share a little bit about your background with our audience. I mean, I read your bio, of course, but I'd love to hear you, in your words, tell our audience about your military career, what made you join the military, and then kind of fast forward to where you are today.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for giving me the opportunity to be on your podcast, episode 73. It's a milestone.
That, by the way, that's 7.3 times longer. I'm going to give a little bit of break because normally it's 7 to 10 episodes and then podcasts collapse after that. So
73 times longer than everybody thought we would make it.
I guess the coffee is kicking in, Jodi Vickery.
I'm holding it close.
I hope there's a 74th after this one. So
I'm sure there will be.
You will carry us there, Steve.
Well, again, thanks for letting me be here today. Thank you for reading my bio. My life started as a military brat. I was born into an Air Force family. My dad was an Air Force NCO who served for 28 years. And I was born in England when he and my mom were stationed there. I have one brother who was born 3 years after I was when my family was stationed at Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska. My brother and I were both inspired by my dad's service, which took us all over the world as we were growing up. And we both decided that we wanted an Air Force career ourselves. So I went to the Air Force Academy first. He joined me when I was a junior. So we overlapped for 2 years. I'm a 1979 graduate. He's a 1981 graduate. And that's where our careers diverged. He always wanted to be a pilot. And we both watched airplanes take off and land at the bases where we were assigned. And he became a pilot, flew F-16s. I decided to take another route after having been inspired by the law faculty at the Air Force Academy. I decided to pursue law. So the Air Force was kind enough to send me to law school. And I served as a judge advocate for 35 years. I guess I inspired my daughters as we dragged them around the world. My oldest is currently serving as an active duty Air Force officer. She and her husband and our 2 granddaughters are stationed at Aviano Air Base in Italy. My younger daughter, who went to the same college as my wife, Colorado State University, decided to sink roots in Colorado, and she and her husband and our 3 grandsons live in the Denver area. So, 35 years after I first raised my right hand, I retired from the Air Force. And as you know, I spent almost the last 10 years at the Association of Military Banks of America, working with great people like you, whose banks serve military and veteran communities. And I want to thank you for that service.
Excellent.
I think that's pretty cool that you and your brother were at the academy at the same time.
We were. And as a matter of fact, I was inspired to go to the academy because of materials that he collected.
Oh,
One of which was a little book called Wild Blue U that he had on his desk that I stole one day and read through. And that's what inspired me to go to the academy. 26 years after my brother graduated from the academy, he retired. And I had that book, my household goods that I'd been dragging around the world. And so at his retirement ceremony in Colorado Springs at NORAD Northcom headquarters, I was a brigadier general at the time. He was a colonel when he retired. In my remarks at his retirement ceremony, I brought out that book and gave it back to him.
That's awesome. That's got a lot of miles on it, I bet.
It does.
Yeah.
It
Most well-traveled book ever.
He put creases in the pages and footnotes and stuff like that. Yeah, highlighted certain things. But so I've known you for a while, Steve. A little bit longer than I've known Jodi.
So we should apologize to you, Steve, is what that statement tells me.
You know what? We should allow our listeners to hear you sing, right?
Oh, no.
You don't want, it's too early for that?
It's way too early.
I'll tell you,
I can come back this afternoon if that helps.
I'll tell you, when we kick off our AMBA conference, our fall workshops, and he starts it with the national anthem.
Yes, good.
It gives you chills.
That's awesome.
And then people freak out, right? And the audience are like, who is that? It was kind of like the guy in Love Actually when he's with Hugh Grant, right? At the door. Are you with me, Steve?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden his guard starts singing in this baritone. Yeah. Am I digressing? Because
You are.
I have to go back to movies.
You are.
Well, it's more like Gomer Pyle, remember?
Oh, I have the deep voice like that. Yeah.
Nobody expects it when you're looking at Gomer Pyle, and then he starts in with his singing, and it just blows people away.
You're a great orator. Is it orator or order?
It's like pecan or pecan.
Neither, neither.
Both are probably.
Tomato, tomato. All right.
I won't judge you. I will judge you, but not out loud.
Collaborator, facilitator, leader, above all. You talked a little bit about your family, Steve, but I know how important family is. Jodi knows that as well, growing up in the military life. And so before we go on to other topics that we want to discuss today, the meaning and importance of family. You're surrounded by really good family members, because I've known Kathy too, your wife, for a few years, and the cloth is pretty awesome within the Lepper household. And talk about that importance of family, and being that the lineage kept going through to your daughter. Just talk about the importance of family for us.
Well, those among our listeners who are military and who have families understand how important family is. I mean, family is really the rock on which you build a military career. And when you travel around the world as much as most military families and as much as we did, my mom and dad and brother and I, we became a very, very solid nuclear family, somewhat detached from our grandparents because we only got to see them as we traveled from location to location and stopped off to visit. But the same is true of my family. My wife and I, my two daughters, we became a very strong nuclear family as we traveled around the world. We tried to see my kids' grandparents more often than I was able to see mine, but we became very close. And now they, I think, have instilled that same spirit and importance in family and in their own families with their husbands and their children. But, Kathy and I were married 45 years ago. When I graduated, the day I graduated from the Air Force Academy, as a matter of fact, I was sworn in as an active duty officer at 12:01 midnight on the 30th of May, 1979, graduated at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and got married at 6 p.m. that evening.
That's a heck of a day.
What'd you do today?
Yeah. My marriage has lasted longer than my Air Force career. Fortunately, it was more resilient. And our two daughters, Jennifer and Helen, we dragged them around the world. They lived in Europe. My younger daughter, by the time we were assigned to Asia, the Pacific, my older daughter had already gone off to the Air Force Academy. So we dragged them around the world. And I think that gave them a much broader perspective on the diversity that exists in our world and the need to embrace it. So they, like I said, my older daughter continued our tradition in our family of military service, and she just crossed the 20-year point herself. So pretty remarkable. Yeah. But family is the most important thing, at least in my view, and just trying to continue that with our grandchildren now.
I was going to say, with 5 grandchildren, there's a high likelihood that will continue. I come from a lineage of Episcopal priests, and there were 3 generations of Episcopal priests. My brother carried the torch of Bill McLean the 4th, but he has yet to enter that fray. So he still has time,
I suppose. So I want to come back to the advice you might give. So your military career stands on its own. What advice, if a young person was thinking about embarking on a career in the military, whether it was just maybe one tour of service or a lifetime career like you and your family have served, what advice would you give them as they think about that decision? Because it's a big choice.
Well, thanks for that question, because it's an important one. All the services are facing recruiting challenges right now. And it's hard to pinpoint exactly why our young people don't consider the military a place that they'd like to at least start their careers, start their working lives. But I would encourage young people who are thinking about joining the military, and the Air Force in particular, because that's where I spent my career, that it's a great opportunity to learn about who you are. Basic training is not easy. Most people learn what their capacity for lots of things is when they go through basic training, and they look back on that experience very proudly, having successfully completed it. And then, an Air Force career, whether it lasts an initial 4-year commitment or 35 years like mine, is filled with opportunities for growth, for education. Most young enlisted personnel will emerge after 4 years with a significant number of credits that they can use for college education. Most young enlisted airmen will sign up for the community college of the Air Force, and they'll get credit for all of the technical training they receive to qualify them for the jobs they do in the military. Our country needs young people to join and to serve. And so, I think it all is part and parcel of love of country to consider serving in uniform.
Yeah, no, I think that last part's certainly spot on for sure.
We're going to shift gears a little bit to we talked about before the podcast started getting recorded, but Veterans Benefits Banking Program, VBBP. We always struggle with that acronym.
Can you say that 3 times real fast?
No. Can you say unique New York 5 times real fast? Try it.
No, that was random, no. So I will after another cup of coffee.
Okay. So VBBP, so talk about that program. And I guess I'm going to segue a little bit too, because we talked about Veteran Saves Week that starts this week. This podcast will get published after the fact, but just know that in 2025 and beyond, when Veteran Saves Week is there, where we offer incentives to encourage people behaviorally to save for something. That I also want to say we had Bonnie Wallace last week on a podcast, Steve, for Wells Fargo Foundation. She talked about Vet Sense, and we won't get into that as much, but let's talk about how the Veterans Benefits Banking Program and even how that has helped families and how it's helped military, how it's helped veterans, whether it's been a cost-saving initiative or an access to money initiative, or just a priority for AMBA when you were there too, because you helped really kick that off and get it off the ground. And making it available for families is a great story to tell. So talk about that you get 33 seconds to talk about that, but
okay.
Yeah.
Let me try to do justice, because I consider the Veterans Benefits Banking Program to be my proudest legacy.
Agreed. It's awesome.
10 years at AMBA. One thing that I didn't mention when I talked about joining the military is the fact that military service also includes some good pay and benefits. And when you leave the military, we just celebrated Veterans Day yesterday. By definition, when you serve, you are a veteran. And so there are also benefits that veterans have, depending upon how they served, when they served, how long they served, and the conditions under which they separated. If they had any kind of disability, they can receive medical care for that disability and or payment for disabilities. But one of the things, I'll just go back and just give you a little history of VP. In 2019, the VA, Department of Veterans Affairs, reached out to me on a cold call. I was at work in Washington, D.C. in our office, and I got a call on my mobile phone from someone I didn't know. Rather than following my wife's advice,
don't pick up
those calls, I actually did. And at the other end of the line was a gentleman named Joe Gurney, who at that time was a special assistant to the Undersecretary for Benefits at the VA. And the problem he described and that he asked me to help him solve was that over 250,000 veterans were receiving monetary benefits from the VA in the form of a paper check or on prepaid debit cards issued through the Treasury's Direct Express debit card program. And in either of those two situations, whether on the Direct Express card or a paper check, veterans were encountering significant costs to cash checks or to visit ATMs and withdraw money. And they were also experiencing high incidents of fraud and theft. Many of the veterans who received their money in those two ways were getting all their money up front, and they were walking around with wads of cash in their pocket, susceptible to being robbed, susceptible to losing the money. And so what Joe wanted to do was to encourage those veterans to sign up for the direct deposit program. Now, your military listeners will know that military pay is required to be directly deposited into a bank account. And that actually was a policy that was implemented in the mid 1980s when I was serving under a program called SurePay, where previous to that, we were receiving money either at the cashier's cage or by check. It became mandatory in the mid 1980s for military pay to be direct deposited. The VA was reluctant or couldn't make that a requirement for VA benefits. And so what Joe and I decided to do was to establish an online, what we called a financial institution marketplace that veterans could go to, and they could choose from among a list of banks and credit unions that were participating in the program. And in order to participate in the program, a bank or credit union had to simply make two commitments to us. There were no costs involved. They simply had to agree to provide a free, no minimum balance checking account to any veteran who brought their VA benefits to the bank. And more importantly, at least in my view, they had to agree to help any veteran who found it difficult to open up a bank account to overcome whatever obstacles existed to opening an account. So, as an example, you need a physical address in order to open a bank account in this country. Well, we have a significant number of homeless veterans out there who are receiving checks from the VA. In order to open an account, you need a physical address, and in most cases, homeless veterans don't have one. And so what we were able to do was to get the FDIC, the OCC, and the Federal Reserve to agree to allow a VA address to be used as a physical address. So now our program, as a result of the commitments that our banks and credit unions have made to join us, we've been able to bank over 350,000 veterans in the 4+ years that our program has been operating. And so it's probably higher than that now. That was the number when I retired back in August. We had over 100 banks and credit unions as members of the Veterans Benefits Banking Program. And as we implemented the program and we started getting more and more experience with the unique financial challenges that veterans face, we were able to take care of some of those challenges as well by adding to our VBBP program a financial and credit counseling, which is free for veterans who need help dealing with money issues. And so a veteran who needs that help can reach out to the VBBP and get a financial counselor or a credit counselor. Thanks to Bonnie Wallace and the Wells Fargo Foundation, we are able to pay for up to 3 hours of counseling for our veterans with either a credit counselor or a financial counselor. And we've also, through the VetSense program, which you talked about, which Bonnie, I'm sure, spoke about, are able to provide financial education to veterans, online financial education. So those are the three pillars of VBBP: the financial institution marketplace where veterans can open an account, financial and credit counseling, and financial education.
And we have some bankers that might listen to this podcast, right? And I think the exciting news, those that are envious of us because we have a great podcast, right, Jodi? But
sure.
But also from a Community Reinvestment Act, right, from CRA, credit for VBBP. That
he says it a lot more.
I know it's fluid. I kind of do it a little bit chunky, yeah. But yeah, to get credit for that, offering that product, and that's good news on the horizon when it comes to the OCC and CRA requirements.
We have talked to the FDIC and the OCC about our program. They're well aware of the VBBP. They reference the VBBP in the commentary to the most recent set of CRA regulations. And so we're confident that if banks that are members of the VBBP demonstrate to their examiners that this program helps them serve their military and veteran communities more effectively, that their examiner will give them credit.
Good tidbit for our bankers in the audience.
I know.
I appreciate hearing the history behind it. We've talked about it more present day and our current participation in it, but I appreciate kind of the backstory on how it came to be. I know Tom and I both have opinions about the next question, and they're probably generally aligned, but why is it so important for banks or credit unions to step up and serve military families? What's unique about that military family unit or a veteran family that causes banks to need to step up in unique ways to provide them beyond the Veterans Benefits Banking Program, even provide them financial services?
Well, I think it's important from my perspective as a retired military officer and as a veteran, because bank or military families need banks. Back when I was serving, we didn't have these devices, which have become extensions of banks for military members who serve all over the world. So, today, military members and their families can actually bank on their phone or on their computer while being stationed halfway across the world. Now, it wasn't that way when I was serving. And so the banks that we used when we were overseas were the ones that were provided on DoD installations through the Overseas Military Banking Program. Today, the Overseas Military Banking Program is far less needed by military members who serve overseas, because military members and their families can continue to serve or continue to bank with their hometown banks that they may have set up accounts with before they even joined the military. And so it's important for banks to understand.
As a military spouse, I understand how unpredictable life can be. Whether it's a PCS move or just everyday expenses, money can be tight. That's why it's so important to have a checking account that works for you.
Armed Forces Bank offers our Access Freedom checking accounts designed with military families in mind. If you're looking for no monthly fees, early military pay, and no fee access to over 38,000 ATMs nationwide, we've got you covered. Plus, with our user-friendly mobile app, managing your money is a breeze, no matter where you're stationed.
And with about 75% of our team affiliated with the military, Armed Forces Bank really understands the challenges faced by the military and their families. We've been supporting military families for over 100 years, so we'll always have your back.
If you're ready for a checking account that's as flexible as you are, head over to afbank.com or visit a branch near you. Armed Forces Bank, serving those who serve. Member FDIC, $25 opening deposit and e-statements required. Direct deposit required for early military pay. Closing new accounts within 90 days of opening will result in a $25 early closure fee. Message and data rates charged by your mobile phone carrier may apply.
And so it's important for banks to understand that by acquiring a military member or a young person who's graduating from high school or college and joining the military, they potentially could have a customer for life who continues to deal with them, to bank with them, no matter where they are around the world. Military members and veterans have unique financial challenges, and banks that understand how to overcome those challenges are in great demand by military families. Banks that can provide bridges between paydays when unexpected expenses come up. Banks that can provide insured accounts no matter where the military member is assigned overseas. Banks that can provide financial information and education to military members when they need it. And so those are the things that we look for in military banks. Those are the things that we tried to help our member banks in AMBA understand and better, so they can provide better service to their military communities. AMBA started 65 years ago as an organization that essentially provided banks that were serving on military installations a liaison with the Department of Defense. Because so many banks have left military bases, we transformed during my tenure as CEO into a trade association of banks that simply want to serve their military and veteran customers and communities. And so as a former AMBA CEO, I would encourage any banks listening to this podcast to seriously consider joining AMBA, because AMBA can help them understand their military and veteran communities. And almost every community in America has military and veteran customers or potential customers living in them. And we can help you know who those people are.
Makes so much. I mean, I don't know why a bank or a credit union wouldn't aspire to help the military community, but I might be biased slightly.
Steve, I got a plethora of questions here on retirement since I'm knocking on that retirement door, right? It could be anywhere from 3 years to 16 years, but somewhere in between. But so the questions are, I'm gonna rapid fire some questions. How is retirement? Is it overrated? Is it everything you imagined it would be? But when you go back to the younger you, which I mean really is today because you're still a young man, Steve. But when take us back to the younger you about the importance of establishing a solid financial plan, just because I mean you're there now and you're one of the best planners and organizers I know, and you seem to somehow bring it all together. But if you have the foresight before your 35-year career, would you have done anything differently back then that you can tell our audience and why it's important to have a great plan?
Well, Tom, I was very fortunate. When I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, like I said, I was inspired by the law faculty to actually pursue a career in law in the Air Force. One of the reasons I was inspired by the law faculty is because the head of the law department at the time was passionate about financial planning. He not only was a great lawyer, but during his military career, he realized that he had to prepare for his future beyond the military, not only by becoming the best lawyer he can be and continue to practice when he left, but by building a financial foundation that he could rely on in retirement. And so he created a course at the Air Force Academy, which is mandatory for all cadets, called Personal Estate Planning. And in that course, we learned just about everything that financial planners in the civilian communities learn before they qualify to become certified financial planners or accredited financial counselors. They learn how to invest, how to save, how to make money, how to insure yourself or your family, the differences between term insurance and whole life insurance. There were a number of topics covered in this one semester mandatory core course at the Air Force Academy. And that was the foundation that I built my financial plan on. Right out of the gate, my wife and I decided we needed to save money. So we paid ourselves first, as they say. We put money aside before we paid any of our bills. And the minute that the thrift savings plan became essentially a 401k for the military
with BRS,
we started putting money away, and we traveled quite a bit. We lived all over the world, and there were times when it was very, very difficult for us to save money because it's expensive when you have to move every 2 to 3 years, and the military listeners will understand all of that. But throughout it all, we made savings a priority. Whenever I was promoted, we knew we could live within the income that I had previously received at my previous rank. And so we took as much of my raise as possible and put it in the bank and saved. When I left the Air Force after 35 years, I not only had a generous pension, which is one of the great benefits that people ought to be aware of when they consider a military career. But we also had the thrift savings plan, the 401k, and we had basically a good savings account. Saving money is key. Knowing how to invest it safely will help it grow. And by the time you leave the military, whether that's after 4 years or 35 years, you'll have some money to take with you.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, that should be like a mandatory class for any young person.
Even, I mean, there's companies out there with like a vet biz, call it what it is, about starting a small business, or a military spouse wanting to start a business, or as you transition out, how does a veteran start a business? And that, I think, there's always more we can do and never enough out there.
Yeah, no, agreed. Thinking about that as a mom with a 19-year-old in college, that probably. But for wisdom from sage old mom, hasn't had such a class. What would you layer on top of that with respect to estate planning? So you build this wealth over a long period of time with good habits that you've described. What advice might you give in a nutshell for our listeners with respect to estate planning and making sure that you've protected that so that as you leave that financial legacy for your family, you're well prepared to do that?
Great question. And that was also a topic covered in our cadet personal estate planning course.
I need to go to this class.
I know.
Can I
We
get
need to
in?
market it. Yeah.
As a judge advocate, what I tried to do is I tried to take the estate planning part of that course, and I tried to use it to educate the airmen that I was assigned to serve at whatever military installation I was assigned to. And so the key message that I would deliver as the JAG on a military installation is go get a will. At a minimum, you need a will, and your legal office can provide you one. So to all military members and their spouses, go get a will, go to the legal office. Even more than that, though, and most military wills will include this, is the need for a trust. A will provides a basic roadmap for someone called the executor. So when a person passes away, an executor is usually assigned in the will as a person who can take care of all of the property and distribute it to whoever the individual who passed away wanted it distributed to. A trust is a document that can avoid the labor and money intensive process of probate. And probate is a legal process by which a will is actually filed with the state and enforced in its provisions. That process usually requires a lawyer, and lawyers usually require money to do those services. And so that probate process is something that can be avoided if you have a trust. So my second message is, after get a will, is get a trust. Many legal offices will do basic trusts, but as your estate grows, the need for a trust also grows. So that when you get to a point where you've amassed a significant amount of money or property, having a trust will avoid needing a lawyer when you pass away. The property will simply go to the people that you've given it to under your trust without need to file the trust with the state, without the need to hire a lawyer to do all that stuff, without the need for an executor, because the successor trustees, in my case, my wife and I have a trust, a family revocable living trust. We are both the trustees of the trust right now, but when we pass away, our daughters will be the trustees. And they, as successor trustees, will simply be able to divide everything that's in the trust between them. So those are the two main messages that I have for estate planning. There are also lots of other things like powers of attorney for medical purposes. As you get older, like I am, and thanks for calling me young, Tom.
Well,
Don't ever call me young.
Once you cross the Medicare threshold, I think by definition you're a senior citizen. So we're past that. But as we pass that, and we've all experienced watching parents age, and we all watch them needing more medical care. We all watch them not being able to manage that medical care as effectively as they get older. Having things like a medical power of attorney are critical so that you can give someone else who can help you manage those things the legal ability to do so.
The resources out there are pretty phenomenal, especially at the AMBA website too. When you think about mill docs, which we won't talk about a little bit as much today, but mill docs is a great way to keep your documents planned, organized, and in a nice location. So family members, when you're overseas, they know where the important things are. And even the Armed Forces Financial Guide, Steve, that's now available in exchanges. I think yes. It's available in exchange. I'm not speaking out of turn.
It is.
You're going to show it on the screen right now.
I'm going to show it on the screen. I have it right here at my desk.
Love it. That's the newest version, right?
This is the newest version. This is something that we developed along with our counterpart trade association, the Defense Credit Union Council.
Yeah.
econ professors up at West Point actually provided the material that's in this financial guide. This is a document you should get and keep because it's got all the information you need to know about all your benefits and how to protect them.
You get a kickback on that now that you put a plug in for that.
I know we're going to have to screenshot
light
that.
bulb,
Make it
light
more
bulb
than
press. Right. All right. Let's shift to the fraud, right? I think I've had my card and personal information compromised at least 3 times in my life. You've had it happen to you, Steve. I'm sure that Jodi in this room have probably been on the periphery or had direct fraud impact their lives. So you're a current member of the Better Business Bureau Institute for Marketplace Trust Board of Directors, which really is 8 words too long for that. And so the need to protect yourself, right? And you talked about fraud earlier with even the prepaid cards or the paper checks that might go into a mailbox and people steal them from the mailbox. There's just fraud everywhere, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, we see it every day. Most banks are 2 or 3 steps behind the crooks out there, unfortunately. And there's a lot of things happening out there, and it's a dangerous world when it comes to personally identifiable information and the sharing of information when we just need to not share with people if they're not trusted sources. So any advice or ideas on how one can protect him or herself from fraud?
Yeah, these are the things that you hear all the time. Don't open attachments on email. Know who your email is coming from. Those sorts of things. I'll just give you an example of how we were attacked at AMBA. One of the things that I always do, and that I recommend all your listeners do, is look at your accounts daily.
Yes.
There are programs out there like Quicken where you can attach your credit cards, you can attach your bank accounts, and by running Quicken, which takes maybe 3 minutes a day, you can update Quicken and you can see what transactions have taken place in every one of your accounts. There are other programs out there like that. My strong recommendation is get something like that so that you can spend 5 minutes a day checking to see what transactions occurred in each of your accounts.
Agreed.
I was doing that with our AMBA accounts one day, and I discovered a $10,000 withdrawal. I didn't authorize it. Nobody who worked in AMBA authorized it. And so I went to the bank and said, I just lost $10,000 out of my account. I have no idea how it got out. I didn't write a check. I didn't use a credit card. Turns out someone had connected my account to theirs using those micro deposit.
Yeah.
Because the micro deposits were under $1 and the lowest threshold that my bank had for reporting transactions was $1, someone had connected their account to mine. And once they did that, they reached into my account and pulled out $10,000.
Grief.
Of course, I went to the bank. They terminated that connection. They investigated and they refunded my money.
By the way, did they give you a provisional credit up front before the investigation or afterwards?
Yes, they did. They actually returned the money.
Banks are great about that. Yep.
Absolutely. So my strong advice is check your accounts daily. And if you see an unauthorized transaction, go to your credit card company if it's on the credit card. Go to your bank if it's in your bank account. Go to your investment broker if it's in your investment account and immediately report it. The quicker you report it, the more likely it is you'll be able to get that money back. Fraud can occur in multiple ways. I mentioned the veteran with cash in their pocket. That's the physical world that we used to live in, where somebody who had a gun and said, stick them up, is able to rob you of money that you got in your pocket. That's the low-tech end of the spectrum. The high-tech end of the spectrum is all the stuff that's capable of being done electronically now to access your accounts or to get you to send people money.
Right.
I was in the middle of the tech spectrum. I was standing in the hallway as an elderly friend of mine was on the phone one day, and he was talking to somebody that sounded like his grandson. And he was getting really emotional and asking, where should I send this money? How much should I send? After he hung up, I said, who was on the phone? Who are you on the phone with? He says, well, it was my grandson. I said, well, what did your grandson want? Well, he's in jail, and he told me that he needed $10,000 so that he could post bail. And I said, that's a fraud. That's a scam. Don't do it. He looked at me. He's probably in his late 70s. He looked at me and says, what do you mean? I said, this is a known scam. Before you do anything, call your grandson or call your grandson's mom, who happened to be his daughter. So he did that. He called his daughter, and turns out his grandson was just fine. So that's the middle of the tech spectrum, using something like this to reach out to someone who's unaware of the scams out there, and using the likelihood that this elderly person has family members who could get into trouble as a way to leverage money out of them. And then the high end of the tech spectrum, I talked about somebody hooking up to my account and pulling money out. We all constantly get emails asking us to open attachments, which in some cases will deposit viruses on your computer, which will then allow someone to get into your computer and pull money out of your accounts. The Better Business Bureau Institute, which you mentioned and that I'm on the board of, has spent a lot of time and effort thinking about fraud. Yesterday, they released a new study on the incidence of fraud and theft in the military and veteran communities. So I would recommend that folks who want to see the data go and get that document from the Better Business Bureau. I think you can access it through the Better Business Bureau Institute's website. But it should be no surprise that our military members are attacked at a rate higher than the civilian population, and that when they do fall victim to frauds and scams, they end up losing more money than their civilian counterparts. And so I don't know exactly why that is, but our military members need to be very, very careful about scammers out there who are trying to get into their pockets.
Agreed. But by the way, somebody impersonated my niece's voice, called my mom, who's in her late 80s, did the same kind of thing. It wasn't a prison thing. It was more, I was in a car accident. The police are here. I need to get some money. And she went to a retailer, checkbook in hand, literally, and was going to a retailer in Florida, Publix. But the Publix employee thought there was an elder abuse situation, thought there was something that wasn't right about it, and prevented her from doing it. So be diligent as a banker, someone that works at a credit union or retailer, anybody that offers financial services, to protect those that are vulnerable. And whether it's the military or the elderly, it's almost our sworn duty to try to protect them and protect their assets too. So yeah, it's everywhere. That voice takeover stuff is kind of scary. And with AI and the progress that technology is making, it's going to get worse.
Yes.
We've got to be on our guard. We got to play defense more than offense these days.
We really, really do. And as bankers, when I was sitting outside my banker's office when I reported the fraud on the AMBA accounts, there was an elderly lady sitting across from me. No surprise, I live in Florida. Lots of elderly people here. But this elderly lady was talking to my banker in a voice that was loud enough to hear about how someone was trying to get $300,000 from her.
Jeez.
And her banker put the brakes on really quickly, started investigating, and discovered exactly what you described. It was somebody trying to scam her.
Yeah.
Well, I think you both just answered we had one more question.
We have
for
one
today,
more question
Tom,
for
and
Steve.
I think between you and what Steve just said, you kind of answered part of it. So we've talked about a lot of topics, from sort of basic banking needs, investing, financial planning, estate planning. What's your view, Steve, on the role of a really great banking partner in all of that?
Well, we talked a lot about how military families need banks, and any bank can become a quote military bank today because there are so many military members who have accounts at a variety of financial institutions across the country.
True.
And so what bankers need to know is that their military and veteran customers have unique financial challenges. The more they know about those challenges, the more they can help those customers deal with them. I talked about the costs of moving. That is something that every military family has experienced and will continue to experience throughout their military career. Those are often costs that can be assisted with by banks in the event that the family needs cash it doesn't have to pay bills that they didn't expect as part of the move. So it's really important for banks to understand that the people that we celebrate on Veterans Day, as we did yesterday, need their help to maintain, and even more importantly, to establish that financial foundation that the rest of their lives is going to be built on. I talked about the need to save. Bankers need to understand that savings needs to be a priority among military families, because military service has its great advantages, but it also has its risks. And those risks include physical and medical risks that will sometimes prevent a military member from having the kind of lucrative financial career that they expected to have when they retired from the military. And so often what you retire with is what is going to continue your life for the rest of your life.
Yeah, agreed.
And the messages I had for military families about saving are so important, because you never know what's around that corner. You never know about the disabilities that you may incur as a result of military service. And you never know how those disabilities or those medical issues are going to prevent you from having certain jobs when you do separate or retire. So all of that is the life that a military member leads, that bankers like you need to understand as you help them wrap their heads around the need for a strong financial foundation.
Well said.
I don't want this to end.
It must end. We already established at the top that he's a very busy person.
I know.
I'm going to save you from yourself and transition to maybe not gracefully, but we're going to transition to the military minute. So if you have just a second, Steve, we think it's fun. We think it's endearing way to end our show every time. And we want to play the military minute. So last podcast episode, we had John Wayne Troxell on as our guest, and he is an author. And so I know.
He probably wrote a book then.
As the name implies.
Could have been a poet,
yes. Right? And so our question for our audience, which should have been easy if they listened and paid attention to the podcast, was, what was the name of John's book? Do you know, Tom?
Wait a minute. Surrender or Die.
In the interest of time, I will expedite delivery of the answer. The name of John Wayne Troxell's book was Surrender or Die, Reflections of a Combat Leader. So if you are a smart cookie in our audience and you commented that when the podcast dropped, watch for your name to be posted as the lucky winner of $50 for yourself and $50 for a charity of your choice. And you should save that money, we've established today.
Right.
Yes. Found money. Yes. But today's military minute.
Wait. There's three more tidbits about Steve, right?
Oh.
He owns an RV, he owns a boat, and he collects art.
Oh.
Which is why.
That makes the military minute question make a lot more sense now versus just you being random. So you can't answer this, Steve. So knowing you collect art, you probably know the answer. Tom probably had to Google it.
Just blink twice if you know the answer, okay,
Blink
Steve?
Twice.
Yeah.
What? Oh, wait, not what. Who is the French artist famous for his water lilies paintings?
You want me to answer it?
Oh,
No.
Oh, okay.
This is for a future.
I will blink twice.
All right, audience. Steve threw down the gauntlet. He knows the answer. We saw him blink. So if you know the answer when this podcast drops, comment your best educated guess and then watch for yourself, if you're right, to be also posted as the winner of $50 for yourself and $50 for a charity of your choice.
Just throwing money out there.
I'm just throwing money. I'm making it rain on this podcast. I tell you what, it's the coffee fund. It's the coffee fund. Well, Steve, it was a great opportunity to spend some time with you this morning. I appreciate you sharing all your life's experiences and good nuggets of wisdom with our audience.
Well, thank you. Thanks for letting me be here. This is something that I wanted to do while I was still at AMBA, but
I know.
Tom ignored me.
But Tom dropped the ball. It's
I had
okay
to put you on a waiting list. The demand was so high. So if you enjoyed today's episode, go out to afbank.com and subscribe to the show. Also, make sure to rate us leave us a comment, hopefully favorably, about Jodi on your favorite podcast platform, such as Apple Podcast or Spotify and YouTube. Again, thrilled to have you as a guest, and thank you for your service, and thank you for being an incredible human being.
Thank you.
Copyright Armed Forces Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. All non-Armed Forces Bank owned apps, websites, company names, and product names are trademarks or registered trademarks of their respective owners. Their mention does not imply any affiliation with or endorsement by Armed Forces Bank of them or their products and services. They are merely used as examples of the many available apps, companies, and websites that offer similar services. Before using any app or website, you should carefully review the terms of use, data collection, and privacy policy. Apps may have an initial cost or in-application purchase features. This information is general in nature and is not intended to be legal, tax, or financial advice. Although Armed Forces Bank believes this information to be accurate, it cannot ensure that it could change. Statements or opinions of individuals referenced herein are their own, not Armed Forces Bank. Consult an appropriate professional concerning your specific situation and respective governing bodies for applicable laws, such as IRS.gov for current tax law. Armed Forces Bank, the Armed Forces Bank logo, and the Militarily Speaking logo are registered trademarks of Armed Forces Bank.